A will to drive forward can carry you so far in this life. I remember probably in 7th grade, I got stuffed into a trash can, and man, I was getting literally the snot knocked out of me. So a lot of people, when I said, man, I'm gonna become a SEAL, I was like a laughing stock. It was like a tipping point in my life. Like, I'm going to prove to you that I have the ability to do this.
Welcome back to the Mulligan Brothers. Today, this video, I'm joined by Jason Redman in a very exclusive clip. Jason's one of those guys that has an abundance of stories to tell you, but has a great way of articulating how those lessons could apply to your life. Today's episode, as always, is sponsored by Huel. I'll talk about these a little bit more later on in the video, but this is the Huel Black Edition that I have been using for the past 3 months now. I think that Huel's had Black Edition ready to drinks out, and it's an absolute game changer. So find out more with the link down below. Let's dive into the video.
Back when I was 14, I literally was like the 95-pound weakling. I was more interested in playing pretend than going and doing real things. So a lot of people, when I said, man, I'm going to become a SEAL, I was like a laughing stock. I don't know why. It was like a tipping point in my life. Like, I'm going to prove to you that I have the ability to do this. And I just locked onto it, and I never looked back from that moment.
Is there a story that stands out when you say you were 95 pounds small and people were like ridiculing you for the idea of being in the SEALs? Like, was there something that stands out in particular? Like, we spoke earlier about, you grew up having to face bullies and having to deal with people looking down on you because you were so small.
I got bullied multiple times in school. I mean, I remember probably in 7th grade, I got stuffed into a trash can. I remember when I started playing football, there was a day where I played a receiver and a cornerback. And they were working on a play, and I kept disrupting the play. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. It wasn't that I was this amazing football player. But it really started to piss off the offense, and specifically some of the guys on the offensive line. I made up for my lack of size by probably being loud and a smart ass, and, which oftentimes really rubbed people the wrong way. I look back on that now. So I think probably a lot of people thought I was annoying. And I think that that's kind of what happened that day. I started to try and rub it in the face. Here I am, I'm disrupting this play. And man, they turned it into like, let's kill this guy. And the coach just kind of let it happen. And I will say it was a good moment for me, because it also was it was a little bit of an overcome moment, if you will, because I would not back down. And man, I was getting literally the snot knocked out of me, and I would just get back up and try and do it again. And it taught me a lesson in perseverance, in that, hey man, you don't have to be the biggest, you don't have to be the strongest. Like, heart and a will to drive forward can carry you so far in this life. Because the assistant coach came up to me afterwards, and he just said, hey man, I just want to tell you, he said, that was one of the best examples of heart I've seen on the field in a long time. So, just many moments like that kind of occurred as I was a young man. I started to become popular probably my senior year, but up until that point, I was kind of a nerd. I definitely was not in the in crowd in any way. I think I, by sheer force of will, got myself into the in crowd, and some of that had to happen, or happened just because, I started flexing my independence. I got kicked out of the house by my parents, by my dad. I was living with my dad and stepmom, and really was butting heads with them. And my dad, I was really butting heads hard with my stepmom. My dad was like, hey, look, she's my wife. You're going to be gone in another couple of years, so I'm not picking between the two of you, so you're out. So I ended up going and living with my sister, and in some ways it was good. Gave me some freedom to grow. It also taught me some some responsibility because I had to go get a job. I worked actually 2 jobs while I was still going to school, while still training and trying to focus on being a SEAL. But I think it also taught me to maybe to fit in a little more, because by the time I was a senior and this had happened, like I was hanging out with some of the cool kids, and so it was an interesting, but my sole focus really was I want to be a SEAL, and everything kind of led to that, and that's what kept me out of trouble for the most part. I was hanging out with some people who, were doing things that, drugs and some criminal activity. They kind of ran with some gangs in the area where we lived, and I thought that was cool, like many young, impressionable young men. But I was smart enough to not, I knew that if I got myself in trouble, I would not be able to go in the Navy, and I knew it would impact my security clearance. So I was smart enough to dabble in it, very low level, but not ever to really get myself in trouble. And then, left and went on to the Navy and started driving forward from there.
I hope you're enjoying the highlights so far. Today's video was sponsored by Huel as always. This is the Huel Black Edition. I've been using this for the past few months now. Huel Black Edition has just been released in the US and it is amazing. It has 35 grams of protein. It's ready to drink. It's got 26 vitamins and minerals and slow release carbs, meaning that you can fuel your performance or your day-to-day life with this. Find out more with the link in the description. Being small and sort of overlooked and wanting to prove people wrong, is there anything else to that? Was it just the fact that you were a little bit smaller than everybody else? Or was there anything else like trying to prove yourself?
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, I wasn't the most athletic person. I learned later as I developed better that I had pretty good speed, hand speed and things like that when I did some training later. But for the most part, I think as I get older, I think I'm starting to recognize that I think all of us carry the scars of our youth and lessons that's impacted on us. So I think some of it is inferiority complex, and you try and make up for it by accomplishments and proving and, whatever things. We used to joke about big trucks with big tires, and I had one of those, and people used to say, oh, you're making up for something. And I don't know, maybe I was. So yeah, I think I always felt like, hey, I need to prove myself in this life, and always like, hey, I got to be at the next level. Hey, I got to be, first if I can, or, at the highest level I can be. So that drove me pretty relentlessly. And in some ways it was good. I think like a lot of successful people, an insecurity can really drive you to be successful. The downside is I get older, and it's only, I don't know, it's only really recently that I feel like I'm starting to appreciate this. It's also a hard way to live your life. I feel like I feel like I drag 1,000-pound weight behind me everywhere I go, and it's the ghost of Jason Redman past. And like I'm trying to always prove that I'm better than that guy, which leads to all kinds of, it's funny. I often talk to other people. Hey, man, don't compare. We all compare. We live in this comparison world. We live in a world that has built itself on a platform of likes and views, and, success is driven by how much you're in the spotlight and what level of impact you have. And the rational side of me can take a step back and say, wow, you really done well. But the irrational side of me, the ghost of the past, says, yeah, you'll never be there. You're just that guy. So those are things that as I get older, I'm working on.